Hey, this is Dustin, and I'm back with a review of one of the biggest, most well-known ski areas in the East, Sugarbush in Warren, Vermont. I'm going to break down the terrain, the lifts, the vibes, the snow, and whether it's worth the trip. And then I'll give it an official rating. Sugarbush is made of two separate areas, Lincoln Peak, which includes Gad, Lincoln, Castle Rock, and North Links Peaks, and Mount Ellen, also known as Sugarbush North, which includes Mount Ellen and Inverness Peaks. Sugarbush has 2,600 vertical feet. The base is at 1,483 and the summit at 4,083. This is over on the Mount Ellen side, and it is true continuous vert from top to bottom, although you have to take multiple lifts to get it, and you will ride some greens toward the bottom of the mountain. Over on Lincoln Peak, the vert is a little lower at 2,400 feet, although the runs over here have more continuous steep pitches in general. There are 581 skiable acres, which is pretty good for the area. Sugarbush has 139 runs on the trail map. 89 of these are at Lincoln Peak and 50 at Mount Ellen. These include 111 trails and 28 wooded areas. As far as lifts go, Sugarbush has a lot of them. They have 17 lifts. 6 major lifts were constructed or relocated in 1995, all but one of which are still going, but there hasn't been much since. 4 fixed grip quads have been installed in the past 10 years, although most of them are for beginners and park. As far as the major pods, all lifts are fixed gripped or very old or both. The first lift is the Valley House Quad. It's a fixed grip quad with a loading carpet that's largely redundant with the Super Bravo Express. It works well to relieve some crowds at the base on busy days. This lift is from 2015 and it services a little bit of everything except for truly beginner terrain. Next up is the Super Bravo Express Quad. This is a 1995 detachable lift that can be really windy and suffers from massive reliability issues. It's not uncommon for this lift to be stuck for long periods of the day, so it's good news that the Valley House Quad is newer and more reliable. This lift services all of Gad Peak, and it's a good way to get to upper mountain areas like Heaven's Gate and Castle Rock. Next up is the Heaven's Gate Quad. It's from 2024 and features a loading conveyor. This replaced a 40-year-old triple chair. It's the first new lift installed under Altera's ownership of Sugarbush. This lift has almost 1,500 vert and it services some of the most difficult terrain at Sugarbush. This lift is a big improvement from the outgoing triple, but I think they missed an opportunity here. Heaven's Gate would have definitely benefited from being a detachable as it's a long, windy ride to the top. Also, with the detachable lift, they could have increased the run length, maybe to the bottom of Castle Rock or all the way to the base with a mid-station, kind of like the old gondola used to do. I'm guessing that they wanted to keep this project quick and simple and cheap and avoid problems with wind holds, although new detachable lifts are able to engineer their way out of a lot of wind problems, so I think it would have been doable if they had the ambition. Next is Castle Rock Double. It's the only double at Sugarbush, and it's a really long lift that gets really long lines. It services 1670 vert and provides access to natural expert terrain. This lift is rarely open because it relies entirely on natural snow, but when it's good enough to open, make sure you get up there if you're an expert skier. Although the lift itself is not very good, I think it's perfect for this pod. Due to the low capacity, the limited snow will not get skied off as quickly, and the long ride time gives you a break between these demanding runs. Next is Gatehouse. It's another 1995 detachable quad, and it's a big workhorse from the base of Lincoln Peak. This lift only services 831 vert, but it's a pretty major pod for beginners and weak intermediates. Right at the top of Gatehouse, you can find the North Links Triple. It's the only triple at Sugarbush, and it was actually relocated from Super Bravo in 1995. It services around 850 vert. It's often not open and suffers from reliability issues. It's a small terrain pod geared for intermediate and advanced skiers, and it's probably a good lift to try if you're an intermediate looking to try your first black. There are 2 surface lifts at the bottom of Lincoln Peak for first-timers and kids. They're called Welcome Mat and Schoolhouse. The main Bunny Hill lift is called Village Quad, and it's from 2017 and is already suffering from reliability issues. Next up is the Slidebrook Express Quad. This lift will transport you from Lincoln Peak to Mount Ellen and back. This is the longest detachable quad in the world and has 40 towers over 2 miles. There's only 400 feet of vert because it's a transport lift and mostly runs side to side. It's rarely open and it suffers from reliability issues, but they will open it on weekends and holidays midwinter when they're able. When Slidebrook is open, it allows Sugarbush to ski like one big resort instead of 2 separate areas. One downside is that when Slidebrook was made in 1995, the old owners gave up all their rights to develop in Slidebrook further. This means that it would be very difficult to develop skiing between the current Lincoln Peak and Mount Ellen areas, especially with their current permits and working with the Forest Service. The first lift over on the Mount Ellen side is the Sunshine Quad. It services the biggest parks at Sugarbush as well as the Bunny Hills. The next lift is Easy Up. It's a surface lift that's going to be for kids and first-timers, but it also provides a good way to get from the base of the Sunshine Quad to the Mount Ellen base area without riding the entire Sunshine Quad. Next up is the Green Mountain Express Quad. It's the newest detachable lift at Sugarbush at almost 25 years old. It was made in 2002 and it takes you from the bottom of Mount Ellen to about 2/3 of the way up the mountain. This lift services a little bit of everything from green circles to blue square cruisers to blacks, a couple bump runs, and even some woods. The next lift at Mount Ellen is the Summit Quad. This lift takes you from about 2/3 of the way up the mountain to the summit. It services 1041 vert and accesses double black diamond expert terrain as well as a couple blue cruisers. Next is the Northridge Express Quad. This lift services the middle of Mount Ellen. It has the most vert of any lift at Sugarbush at 1690. This lift has huge reliability issues and it's the oldest detach here. It was actually built in 1990 as the Green Mountain Express and relocated after just 5 years in 1995. At that time, GMX was replaced with a fixed grip. This lift only went halfway up, and I guess they decided that it wasn't the best idea because there was a new detach in the original alignment in 2002. The terrain pod over here is really good when Northridge is actually running. It's definitely expert focused, but there are some really good runs for intermediates as well. Next is the KBRA T-Bar. It's generally only used for racing programs over on Inverness. The last lift at Sugarbush is the Inverness Quad. It services an intermediate and beginner pod over on Inverness Peak. This lift had suffered from massive reliability issues, but they just installed a new drive in 2024 which has taken care of most of that. Overall, the lifts at Sugarbush are in a pretty good layout, although some of them are in dire need of replacement. Natural snowfall is pretty good, and it's about what you'd expect in northern Vermont. They get 250 inches of natural snow annually, although their snowmaking is kind of just average. There's no snowmaking on Castle Rock, as I mentioned earlier, and openings around the mountain can take a bit longer than other resorts. It is the East Coast, so you can expect freeze-thaw cycles, although this is not quite as bad as resorts further south due to the latitude and elevation. Beginner terrain is not an area of strength at Sugarbush. Upper mountain lifts at the resort do not serve any greens at all. Lincoln Peak is especially bad because there's only one green run off Gatehouse, and other than that, you're stuck on the Village Quad. Beginner terrain is better over at Mount Ellen, and there are two kind of major lifts that actually serve some good green terrain. Only 19% of trails are rated beginner. Intermediate terrain at Sugarbush is generally very good, and there are great options for intermediates on every major pod except for Castle Rock. There are great blue cruisers and even some bump runs if you're an intermediate. One annoying section for intermediates is right around the trail lower downspout. Intermediate terrain from many major pods funnels down to this area on Lincoln Peak, and it can get very crowded with intermediate skiers, and this trail quickly becomes skied off. A healthy 34% of trails are rated as intermediate. Expert terrain at Sugarbush is very good, especially in the Heaven's Gate, Castle Rock, and Upper Mount Ellen areas. Sugarbush rates 22% of its trails single black diamond, 6% double, and 20% wooded areas, many of which are not super well cleared out. There are even a lot of runs that are not on the map that can be found between trails in the woods. Navigation and crowds at Sugarbush are just okay. They're not too bad for either side of the mountain, but together they're not great. It's pretty difficult to get from Mount Ellen to Lincoln Peak, and especially if Slidebrook isn't running, I recommend skiing them on separate days. There's a free shuttle that'll take you base to base, but this is usually like a 30-minute ride, and it takes a big chunk out of your ski day. If you're in the remote lots, they have some really funny open-air wagons that'll take you from the parking lot to the base. I've never really seen these at any other mountain, and it's kind of a unique feature to Sugarbush. Crowds and lines can get pretty bad on holidays and weekends on the Lincoln Peak side, but the Mount Ellen side is usually pretty empty. Especially at the main base at Lincoln Peak waiting for Valley House, Super Bravo, or Gatehouse, the lines can get really long. And this is also true at Castle Rock, but that's mostly due to the low capacity over there. Lodges and lodging at Sugarbush are pretty good. There are 8 lodges and facilities that I'm going to go over. First off is the Lincoln Peak base area. There's the Valley House, which has a couple of bars and a restaurant. It's up the hill on the left a little bit, right near the Valley House lift. Next is the Gatehouse, which is a great place to get lunch. It's right in the center of the main base, and it's a lodge that a lot of people will go to during the middle of the day. The next lodge is the Farmhouse. This building has tuning, the rental shop, and it's the main meetup for ski school, and it has tables and bathrooms, things like that. Next up is the Schoolhouse, and this is where they run lessons for kids. There's a full-service mid-mountain lodge at the top of Super Bravo called Allen's Lodge. They have a cafeteria and bathrooms. There's also a small warming hut at the top of Castle Rock, and this is a good place to get out of the cold if you're lapping that pod. Over on Mount Ellen, there are 2 lodges. The Mount Ellen Base Lodge, which is a full-service lodge that can get you anything you need, and there's a mid-mountain lodge at the top of Green Mountain Express called the Glen, and it has a restaurant and bathrooms. Lodging at Sugarbush is generally pretty good. There's a big hotel at the bottom of Lincoln Peak called Claybrook. There are also plenty of options for on-mountain condos, although there isn't much over on the Mount Ellen side. Historic Sugarbush Village is a good place to stay. There are a lot of ski-on, ski-off condos and a few restaurants for after skiing. Off-mountain options are pretty good, and it's a quick drive to the town of Warren where they have even more hotels and condos you could stay in. Value at Sugarbush is not great. They were recently sold to Alterra, the company behind the Icon Pass, in 2020. Day tickets top out at $240 for this year. Sugarbush is unlimited on the Icon Pass and unlimited with blackouts on the base pass, but those passes aren't cheap either. They are offering some good discounts for friends of Icon Pass holders, and you can get up to 50% off. Make sure to buy in advance instead of having your friends buy walk-up day tickets. Perhaps the worst value at Sugarbush is the $2,000 reserve pass. All it gets you is the ability to skip the line and enter an exclusive lounge. It's an add-on and does not even get you lift access on its own. Location is not too bad, and there are a lot of other resorts in the area, so if you want to ski Mad River Glen, Stowe, or Bolton Valley, you can do it on the same trip pretty easily. Sugarbush is an hour from Burlington, Vermont, 2:45 from Montreal, 3.5 from Boston, 6 from New York, and 7 from Philadelphia. So these are pretty hefty numbers, but it's not like one of the furthest ski areas in New England. There are plenty of more remote and far destinations. Before I go into future expansions, let's give Sugarbush an official rating. Please note that these are only relative to other ski areas in the east. For size, Sugarbush gets a 4. It has 2 separate ski areas, and it has pretty decent vert and acreage numbers. For lifts, Sugarbush gets 2 out of 5 stars. This is kind of a crazy rating for a resort with 5 high-speed quads, but as I've outlined earlier, many of them are in need of replacement, and a lot of their lifts are very old. The entire fleet seemingly suffers from reliability issues pretty regularly. Sugarbush gets a 4 for snow. It sees good natural totals, but it could use better snowmaking. Even if there was just like one run on Castle Rock with snowmaking, we could see this lift running much more regularly. Maybe like Castle Rock Run to Toll Road or something. Sugarbush gets a 2 for beginner's terrain. There's not very much of it, and most beginners will be stuck on lower mountain areas. Sugarbush gets a 4 for intermediate terrain. There are great options all around the resort. Sugarbush gets a 4 for expert terrain. Although there's a lot of really good expert terrain here, I think Sugarbush lacks in the truly steep, iconic big mountain lines that other mountains offer. Navigation and crowds gets a 3. It's really hard to get from Mount Ellen to Lincoln Peak, especially if Slidebrook isn't running, and crowds can really build up at Lincoln Peak on busy days. Lodging and lodges are pretty good at Sugarbush, and it gets a 3. Lodges are placed appropriately, and there are plenty of good options both on and off mountain for lodging. Sugarbush gets a 2 in value. Walk-up day tickets are really expensive, and the reserve pass is truly outrageous. Location is decent, and it gets a 3. All of these scores combine for a total of 3.2 out of 5. As far as future expansion, I wasn't able to find very much, so please let me know if I missed anything. First up is a replacement for the 35-year-old Northridge Express quad. This is just a life cycle replacement, and it's not in the most popular area, so I probably see it being replaced with another high-speed quad. This lift was scheduled to open in 2024, but it's been postponed. We'll see when it actually opens. The next proposal has been talked about for decades, and it's probably pretty unrealistic. The latest info from this is from 2008, although some plans go back much further. And of course, this is to connect Lincoln Peak and Mount Ellen using the terrain in Slidebrook Basin. There have been many versions of this over the years, but most of them have a lift from the bottom of Slide Brook Basin to the top of North Links, and then another lift from the same spot to about where the Summit Quad starts. So this would be a really good way to connect the two areas and add some terrain pods in between. But as I said during the Slide Brook section, Sugarbush does not have the rights to build any more in here, so it would take a major realignment of their permitting and agreements with the Forest Service to make this happen. While not impossible, this expansion will be years in the future, and I don't think that Alterra currently has the appetite to undertake this, although we'll see what happens in future years. Thank you so much for watching my review of Sugarbush, and I hope you get a chance to get up there really soon.